Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beings everywhere. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday evening reading and discussion of Bhagavad Gita. Our reader, Swayam Didi, will tell us where we are.
Brother Shankara, I have to apologize. I made a mistake again. I'm not at home. I thought I had the book, but actually I again have the other translation. So I was requesting if somebody else has the book, if they can read. I didn't realize until now that it was not, I had it in my mind that I had the book. So I was like relaxing. That's why I didn't message you. And then when I took it out, it's the other translation.
Aha.
Happy.
All right, dear Haima, do you have the book?
Sure. I have the book, Brother Shankara.
Okay, well then, Haima, who is our normal reader on Tuesday evenings, will also serve as reader this evening.
No problem. It's my privilege.
Thank you, Haima. I apologize.
Sure. No problem. I'm honored.
Well, it's easy
happens.
to make mistakes.
Yes.
For those of you who come to Arati, you know that this evening, because I was in a hurry, I had clicked on the Chandi link rather than on the Arati link. So for 8 minutes, those people who were trying to get in couldn't get in because I wasn't, I didn't have the right link open. So as it says in the Chandi, Mother herself abides in all beings in the form of error.
Yes.
That's what it says among the Sarva Bhuteshus. Mother herself abides in all beings in the form of error. So no harm, no foul, dear.
Not a problem.
Haima will tell us where we are,
Okay.
and we'll read on from there.
We are in the book, page 51, chapter 3, Karma Yoga. That's where I'll be starting.
Okay, you're starting with chapter 3.
Chapter
Karma
3.
Yoga. So whatever
Karma Yoga.
version of the book, whatever.
It's.
But it's Swami Prabhavananda's translation.
Yes, Prabhavananda, Christopher Isherwood, Introduction by Aldous Huxley. That's the book we have in this little book. It's 51.
All right, dear. So, but most importantly, it's the beginning of chapter 3.
Exactly. Karma Yoga.
Okay, please read ahead, dear.
Okay. Arjuna is asking Krishna, but Krishna, if you consider knowledge of Brahman superior to any sort of action, why are you telling me to do these terrible deeds? Your statements seem to contradict each other. They confuse my mind. Tell me one definite way of reaching the highest good. I'll read this one more time. Arjuna asking Krishna, but Krishna, if you consider knowledge of Brahman superior to any sort of action, why are you telling me to do these terrible deeds? Your statements seem to contradict each other. They confuse my mind. Tell me one definite way of reaching the highest good. Now Sri Krishna answers, I have already told you that in this world, aspirants may find enlightenment by 2 different paths. For the contemplative is the path of knowledge, For the active is the path of selfless action. Freedom from activity is never achieved by abstaining from action. Nobody can become perfect by merely ceasing to act. In fact, nobody can ever rest from his activity, even for a moment. The activity here, activity includes mental action, conscious and subconscious. All are helplessly forced to act by the gunas. I'll go back to
Please read that again.
exactly. That's what I'm going.
All are helplessly forced to act by the gunas. This is what is meant by God alone is the doer. God or goddess. It depends on your frame of reference and your preference of what you prefer to worship. But these are the instruments. Sri Krishna speaks of them as his own. In the scriptures on Shakti or Maya, they are mentioned as the mother's own instruments. So it is the gunas that are doing all of the actions. This is what is meant by God alone is the doer. That there is no other doer. It seems to us that we are doing, and Krishna will explain to us why. But nevertheless, it is a delusion, a falsehood, and so there's great relief in assimilating this point of view, as we'll see. So please read that again.
I will, Brother Shankara. Sri Krishna answers, I have already told you that in this world, aspirants may find enlightenment by two different paths. For the contemplative is the path of knowledge. For the active is the path of selfless action. Freedom from activity is never achieved by abstaining from action. Nobody can become perfect by merely ceasing to act. In fact, nobody can ever rest from his activity, even for a moment. Here, activity includes mental action, conscious and subconscious. All are helplessly forced to act by the gunas. A man who renounces certain physical actions, but still lets his mind dwell on the objects of his sensual desire, is deceiving himself. He can only be called a hypocrite. The truly admirable man controls his senses by the power of his will. All his actions are disinterested. All are directed along the path to union with Brahman. I'll read this one more, that little paragraph.
Hold on just one moment.
Sure.
The Krishna makes a distinction between the contemplative and the active. Now we can think of this in modern terms as those who are more inclined to be introverted, who are more thoughtful, and they just simply don't interact with the world as much. They're introverted, and so they're more contemplative in their way of being, or the active. And the active are the extroverts. As this is a broad generalization, but this is what is meant by the contemplative and the active. But it's true of both of them that there is no escape from action simply by refraining from action, even by the introvert, because all that is controlled by the gunas, And even your mental, even your thoughts, your contemplation, and your deeper subconscious, your active subconscious, and for that matter, your latent subconscious, it's all being stimulated by the gunas. The gunas are stimulating the mental impressions that are stored in your active and latent subconscious, which gives rise to the thoughts and feelings and sense perceptions that occur in our waking awareness, our ordinary everyday awareness. Is there any comment from anyone else, or any question or any concern about this? Because it's not good to go ahead until we're all very satisfied that we understand. Can't talk? I'm in class. Any comment or question from anyone? All right, everyone's satisfied they understand this distinction and why Sri Krishna is making it. Very good. Okay, please read on, dear.
I'll read this one more time, Brother Shankara. All are helplessly forced to act by the gunas. A man who renounces certain physical actions but still lets his mind dwell on the objects of his sensual desire is deceiving himself. He can only be called a hypocrite. The truly admirable man controls his senses by the power of his will. All his actions are disinterested. All are directed along the path to union with Brahman. Activity is better than inertia. Act, but with self-control. If you are lazy, you cannot even sustain your own body. The world is imprisoned in its own activity, except when actions are performed as worship of God.
Now, this is again one of the more famous verses of the Gita. The world is imprisoned in its own activity unless actions are performed as worship of God. This is the deep and most powerful secret of karma yoga. That the karma yogi, along with the bhakta, does every action, offers every action as worship of the divine being. They're all offered as oblations to the fire of Brahman. That's the technical language. Oblations are offerings to the fire, the consuming fire and transforming fire of Brahman, the active Brahman, Brahman with attributes, Saguna Brahman. And so this is the deep secret. So please read that again.
Yes, I will, Brother Shankara. The truly admirable man controls his senses by the power of his will. All his actions are disinterested. All are directed along the path to union with Brahman. Activity is better than inertia. Act, but with self-control. If you are lazy, you cannot even sustain your own body. The world is imprisoned in its own activity, except when actions are performed as worship of God.
Now, I want to define the word lazy. Swami Swahananda, the Swami who sent me here, was very averse to the word lazy. He said, when people are what appear to us to be lazy, it is simply a different kind of ignorance, a deeper kind of ignorance. It is not that they're bad and wrong for their lack of motivation, which is how he characterized it. Their lack of motivation, their lack of zeal. They have not yet found the reason to be active. They have not found a reason to be active, so they appear to us to be indolent or lazy. So the Swami was very averse to this idea. He said there's nothing wrong with them. It's just a different kind of ignorance in which they have not yet found their reason for acting. And he said, find your zeal in all activities. Find your zeal and go forward. And he would make this gesture, go forward. And it was a very powerful gesture when he made it. You could feel the force of it. Go forward. Don't look back. Don't think about the fact that there were times when you weren't zealous, when you didn't have any reason for action. Just find that reason for action, for doing your whatever it is that you do, whether it is worship or not worship. Not all will be worshipful, particularly in the beginning. They'll act out of self-interest rather than selfless interest. Very hard to act selflessly. And the secret of it is, as Haima read, it is this doing every action in the spirit of worship of the divine being within yourself and within every other living being. Is that all clear to everyone? Is there any comment you'd like to make from your own wisdom or experience about this, or any concern or question you'd like to raise? This is again one of the key points. Okay, if everyone is satisfied, that's excellent.
Okay.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Yeah. Just wanted to sort of make a comment that it is difficult, in the embodied state, to not have some desires and emotions or whatever. So knowing that, to get to that point, if we can offer everything in the service of God, and B, try to disconnect, if we do get that kind of feeling of entanglement, to remind that, okay, my mind is the one that's desiring this, and I as the Atman am free from the entanglement. And just this constant reminder may help us to put that distance. Is that something we can practice?
It's very nice, very nicely summarized. Yes, indeed. All your actions are directed toward the knowledge of and realization of Brahman. When you see it that way and are able to act in that spirit, but it is, as you say, it's impossible. It's not just difficult, it's impossible not to have desires. As we read in chapter 2, desire flows into the mind of the seer. But like water flowing into the ocean, it does not stain the ocean. Desire flows into the mind of the seer because of the actions of the gunas. The gunas are stimulating all these past impressions, which have to do with desire and aversion and hatred and love and all of these things. I mean, human love, not divine love. Not there's anything wrong with human love. But all of it is ultimately an entanglement. So we offer it all of the entanglements, all of these what arises because of the influence of the gunas on our conscious and subconscious minds. Krishna was very careful to point this out, that this is what happens. The gunas give rise to all of this range of attraction, aversion, hatred, love, anger, all of these things that arise. So Sri Krishna says, and ultimately he will give us the full list of everything, a very exhaustive list, and says, offer this all sacramentally to me. And some of the things that he says are quite surprising. Thank you, Swayam. Anything else from anyone?
I was going to also add that the more we learn in the spiritual path, the different practices, then the more options open up to us. If offering to God or trying to disentangle becomes difficult, then considering this all as the play, Leela of God, that then comes to help.
Oh,
So
yes.
one or the other way to keep at it, so to
Well,
speak.
yes, and that refuge is more the refuge of the contemplative. The refuge of this is all the play, the Leela of the divine. It's a movie that is taking place in front of my witness self. Ultimately, as Sri Krishna points out, both the active and contemplative path come to this full realization that this is all just something happening in your presence, you being the Atman, the Saguna Atman, the Atman with attributes that is looking out into this world of time, space, and causation and doing nothing more than observing what takes place here. So thank you, Swayam. Thank you for all of it. Anything else from anyone? This is exactly what we should be doing.
I have a comment. This is from Chandrasekhar, Swami Chandrasekharananda. He is from either Portland, Oregon or Portland, Maine, Brother Shankara.
Portland, Oregon.
Oregon. He came to our center in 2019. I go back to his notes every now and then, all other notes. And he said that everything is clear if we know ourselves, that is through meditation. Until then, we will not understand Karma Yoga. The more you understand yourselves, he said, we will understand Karma Yoga.
Well, what does he mean by yourself?
That is self-realization.
He means knowing yourself as the witness self.
Witness, yes.
And of course, the more you know yourself as the witness self, the more you know your lower self as well.
Yes.
Because you observe what it is that you are thinking, saying, and doing, and saying, oh, this is who I am. This is what my mental impressions will lead to in the way of thought, speech, and action. This is, and ultimately you come to the understanding of why you took this human birth. You come to understand what it is that produced the zeal to take birth again. And so that's when, as Swami Vivekananda says, you can pursue that with both hands, whether it is spiritual, as we define spiritual, think of spiritual, or whether it is secular, as there is no line of demarcation between the two. There is only the divine presence in its various forms, as Swayam pointed out, the Leela play.
Yes.
So yes, exactly, Haima. That's exactly right. We pursue it because we want to.
Yes.
Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Haima.
Sure, brother.
All right, dears. If everyone's satisfied, they understand what Jaime will read it again so that.
I will. I'll read that little paragraph one more time.
Okay.
Activity is better than inertia. Act, but with self-control. If you're lazy, you cannot even sustain your own body. The world is imprisoned in its own activity, except when actions are performed as worship of God. Therefore, you must perform every action sacramentally and be free from all attachments to results.
Now, what does sacramentally mean? The sacrament is an outward,
with full heart.
An outward manifestation of the inner grace. So if something is a sacrament, it is the sacraments, of course, in the Catholic Church are the wafer and the wine. These are the outward manifestation of the transmuted Christ, so that you are taking the flesh and the blood of Christ. This is what the Mass does. So these are what we ordinarily think of when we think of as sacraments. But everything can be thought of as an outward manifestation of the divine within, because that's the only thing that is acting, is the divine through the gunas. So this is what it's meant by sacramentally. So please read that again.
Yes.
And if there is any comment or concern or question from anyone, we should get that straightened out before we move on, because these are the key ideas of karma yoga that Sri Krishna is describing here.
The world is imprisoned in its own activity, except when actions are performed as worship of God. Therefore, you must perform every action sacramentally and be free from all attachments to results.
Now, it doesn't mean you must do this or you're damned to hell. No, you must do this if you wish to pursue karma yoga.
Exactly.
This is that's what he means by must. If you're going to pursue karma yoga as a path, then this is what you must do. The Bhakta has a slightly different take on it. The Raja Yoga has yet a different take, and the Jnani certainly a very different take. But this is the way of karma yoga, which is what we're studying this month as it happens. All right, dear?
In the beginning, the Lord of beings created all men, to each his duty. Do this, he said, and you shall prosper. Duty well done fulfills desire, like Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu means a legendary cow mentioned in the Mahabharata. That is the wish fulfiller. Kamadhenu is the legendary cow who fulfills the wishes. Doing of duty honors the devas, that is, inhabitants of heaven.
Hang on just one moment.
Sure.
Kamadhenu, this wish-fulfilling cow?
Yes.
Has anyone ever wondered why, when Moses went up on the mountain to receive the commandments, that the Jews created this calf and worshipped the calf? It was Kamadhenu. It exists in the Egyptian tradition. They had been slaves in Egypt, and there was the wish-fulfilling calf in their case. This is why the Jews, they were not yet really Jews in the full sense, and much had to happen yet before they became the Jewish or Israeli nation. But when Moses went up to the mountain, what did they do? in the absence of his guidance, they reverted to type. They created this wish-fulfilling calf and were worshiping that calf in order to have their desires fulfilled. So this is the Kamadhenu. It exists in many traditions, including the Lakota and Dakota Native American traditions, where it is seen as a white bison calf. This also exists within their lineage and tradition. So it's worldwide and probably not diffusion. It's probably simply sages who call the truth by many names. So any comments or questions about that before we go on? So please read it again, dear.
Yes. In the beginning, the Lord of beings created all men, to each his duty. Do this, he said, and you shall prosper. Duty well done fulfills desire, like Kamadhenu, the wish fulfiller. Doing of duty honors the devas, that is the inhabitants of heaven. To you, the devas in turn will be gracious, each honoring other. Man reaches the highest. Please the devas, your prayer will be granted.
Now,
But
read that again, dear.
Sure.
And understand that the devas are the
Yes.
ones who actualize what the gunas, they are the instruments. The gunas are Mother's instruments for creating the reality, the gunas being sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva, goodness, rajas, vanity, and tamas, materialism. So these three things are the devas are the ones who actually make all this happen. They are the active principle, and so that's what's being described here, as these inhabitants of heaven, which of course is not the Christian heaven. It's not that at all. It's a plane of existence that is inhabited by the gods, and we may visit there apparently in the afterlife, but we don't stay there like the Christians think. So all this is very complicated and detailed, I know, and this is why I want anyone who isn't clear as to what it is that's being said, or if this gets too knotted up, just make it known. And anyway.
Read it one more.
Yeah.
In the beginning, the Lord of beings created all men, to each his duty. Do this, he said, and you shall prosper. Duty well done fulfills desire, like Kamadhenu, the wish fulfiller. Doing of duty honors the devas. Devas are the inhabitants of heaven. To you, the devas in turn will be gracious, each honoring other. Man reaches the highest. Please the devas, your prayer will be granted. But he enjoys the devas' bounty, showing no thanks. He thieves from the devas.
Please read that again, dear. I think you left the word out.
Yes. Please the devas, your prayer will be granted. But he who enjoys the devas' bounty, showing no thanks, he thieves from the devas.
He thieves. He steals.
He steals.
Steals
Exactly.
From the devas.
Thieves from the devas.
That is to say that everything that is bounty, everything that we receive in the way of auspiciousness, is the result of the devas, is the result of the devas' action.
Definitely.
If we act as if nothing has happened that is of any significance, in other words, if we don't recognize and offer our gratitude and our recognition, which is why we offer our food and our actions and so on to the devas. That's why and it is auspicious to offer everything that we are and do during a day or night, simply as a way of honoring the fact that the divine being is acting through the gunas and the devas to provide this entire play of time, space, and causation. Okay, please read it again, and if anyone has any thoughts or concerns, they should raise them now. Okay, please.
I had a question. I
Yes,
wanted to
please.
go back one paragraph back, and I understand the principle that we must perform every action as if we are worshiping God, and the action should be sacramentally done. So nice as a principle, but how do you tactically do that?
By constantly reminding yourself that that's what you're doing, and reminding the divine presence that you have this thought. So one way to do it is to start each day with that idea. You can do it this way. Dearly beloved, this day and all it contains is offered to you. All actions and their results, all moods and projections, which are created out of our subconscious by the actions of the gunas, all actions and their fruits, all moods and projections, all feelings, all thoughts, all perceptions, all memories, all reveries, all knots and thoughts of the heart, knots, K-N-O-T-S, all knots and thoughts of the heart, all attitudes, all aptitudes, all tendencies, all these are offered at thy blessed, beloved, holy feet. May all be oblations, offerings. May all be offerings, oblations to the fire of Brahman. If you start each day and each night with that, when you say it at night, you say all waking, all sleep, all dreams, all dreamless sleep. You add that to the little mantra there. So this is a way of saying to your mind that this is what we're doing. Then during the day, you remind yourself by offering particular actions like the food that you eat, or water, or other beverages that you drink. This is how it's tactically done, as you say. Good word, tactically. The tactics are to constantly remind yourself. This is recollectedness, collecting the mind from its scatteredness and returning it to its intention of doing everything as a worship of the divine and sacramentally, seeing the evidence of the outward manifestation of the inward grace. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. It's a frame of mind, and thought and everything else that you talked about.
Yes, and we keep that frame of mind by recollectedness. But if we start each day and each night with that, then if you do it, you'll find at night it actually even affects your dreams. You will have more auspicious dreams. This is not a surmise. This is the evidence of my own experience and the experience of other members of this congregation who speak to me about this. So
Thank you.
these are the tactics.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
oftentimes life itself is a teacher.
Oh, yes. Oh,
uh,
amen.
yeah. So we see that those who attain success, be it in the material world, are the ones who, even if in the beginning, I mean, they had a certain goal in mind or something, and if it doesn't happen, those who are able to brush it off quickly and move on end up achieving higher level of success than those who keep brooding over not getting what they hope to achieve. And
Yes,
that, I think,
exactly.
comes as you grow.
If I mean, it's embodied in all kinds of folk sayings. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Vivekananda's, we fall 1,000 times,
Mhm.
we rise 1,001 times. That we must be willing to forge ahead. And this is why that little book, Divine Grace, is such a powerful book for us. Because Swami Ranganathananda says, fulfill the gifts that you were given as a human being. You came to this lifetime with gifts. Free yourself from any restraint of using those gifts. Even if you make mistakes, you learn by doing, not by thinking about it. So if you think about becoming a web designer for a year, you aren't one iota closer to becoming a web designer. But if you get up and go to school and study web design, at the end of a year, you can be already well along the path to being a web designer. I know a young man who is doing this. This is why this example comes to mind. So this is, we must act. We must act. And so this is, and as Swayam pointed out, life is our teacher.
Exactly.
It is, there really is no other teacher in this, in a sense, because life is the divine being doing what teaches us. And usually it is a form of some sort of suffering or misery. We don't learn much from our periods and experiences of happiness. We certainly enjoy them, but we don't learn much from them. We learn from suffering, misery, mistakes. And so if we're not willing to forge ahead, and as Swayam pointed out, if at first you don't succeed, try again. The Power of Positive Thinking. There was a great book, a great
Yes.
bestseller that was published under that title, The Power of Positive Thinking. Don't allow yourself to be defeated. Be
Brother
dauntless
Shankara,
and fearless. Yes, dear.
Couple of other things also come into mind. One is Sri Krishna's, I don't know in which chapter it comes, but promise to Arjuna that nothing in spiritual practice ever goes wasted.
16,
And
chapter 16.
okay. And that is also something when I contemplate, the different people that I know in my life, some seem to be inherently more resilient, and some are not, myself included, but somehow the divine brings us those kind of people in our lives or those kind of experiences that then lead towards growth. I mean, and we become that way. And the other thing is, I really so grateful for Swami Vivekananda and Thakurji, the integration of the 4 yogas, because just positive thinking alone didn't get me much result. But
What?
with
It got you an MD, dear. Are you kidding? How few people are there on this planet who become MDs? I mean, don't you sometimes minimize yourself to in ways that puzzle me, dear. Revel in your success. Revel in what you have achieved. This is what Swami Ranganathananda says. Revel in the fact that you have achieved much. So now you can say, well, that wasn't the goal. But dear heart, your power of positive thinking, your resilience, your dauntlessness, no one becomes an MD without being a very tough person. It's very deliberately designed to separate the sheep from the goats. So think of yourself, and each of us should celebrate the success we have had in our lives. We would not be here tonight together like this if in some measure we were not successful in our lives. Each of us. So don't minimize yourself, dear. Don't think of yourself as something less. You are a magnificent human being that has achieved much. And as Swami Ranganathananda says, now you have something to renounce. If we just sit in a corner and think about it, we never have anything to renounce. We have to take these gifts that we were given. As Sri Krishna said, each human being has been given certain capabilities and duties, as he calls them. If you do them, he says, you will prosper.
Thank you for making me see it that way, Brother Shankara. I'm blessed. I guess what I was also trying to say was that with the japa and the meditation, it's become more real, in the sense of being able to not get too anxious and things like that, to get more even minded. So it's a combination of the 4 paths. And even though in the beginning, like you said, it's our toil at first, but persisting with it, it just somehow makes it automatic, where it's easier to overcome anxieties or difficulties.
Well, this goes back to the question about tactics. A regular spiritual practice is a very auspicious tactic for attaining recollectedness, because our regular spiritual practice, if we do something in the morning, in the evening, after a while it becomes, we notice that it is occurring, our mantra or our visualization or whatever it is that we're doing is occurring during the rest of the day as well. So yes, this regular spiritual practice is exactly what Patanjali means by replacing the lower samskaras, that which will create only worldly success, with higher samskaras, that which will create first psychic and then spiritual success. By psychic success, I mean the calmness of mind and other positive attributes that you talked about. These are psychic phenomena. They lead to then spiritual realization, which is beyond body-mind. Even the psychic, higher forms of mind. Spiritual realization is something that comes from deeper within us and has nothing to do with either the body or the mind, which is why when we're in that state where we have these spiritual experiences, we literally forget about our body and mind. Any other concerns, comments, or questions?
Brother Shankara?
Yes.
So immediately my mind went to, I'm turning over all my actions as a, and then I go on autopilot and the ego takes over and I embarrass myself. And then how am I supposed to get past that? Well,
just offer that too, dear.
that
Just
in itself, the
offer
suffering
that too.
caused by it will
just the fact that one falls down, skins one's knee, bloodies one's nose, embarrasses oneself, as you say. It's inevitable. This is why Vivekananda says we fall 1,000 times, we rise 1,001 times. The way to do this within the framework of karma yoga is to offer everything, everything, positive, negative, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as the film title said. We offer it all to the divine presence. And then when we successfully learn to do that as a habit of mind, there is such a relief because we no longer are having to bear the karmic consequences in a way that we see as personal. It doesn't mean that the karmic consequences won't happen, but they will be less. Holy Mother promises this explicitly. If you were going to receive a sword blow that would cut off your leg, that lesson is no longer necessary, so something will happen. You will receive a scratch. Destiny herself will strike from the book of record what is written there about you, Holy Mother said. So our karmas are removed or lessened, not removed entirely, but lessened to the point of almost not noticing them by these spiritual practices. And this is the promise of the scriptures and the great teachers. Sri Krishna mentions it later in the Gita as well, how it actually works. He does it in something called the chapter called The Field and the Knower. So Glenn, what you're talking about is we move in and out of a higher frame of consciousness. When we're out of that higher frame of consciousness and we suffer in some way, you mentioned the word embarrass yourself. Well, I assume that you feel embarrassed. So offer that feeling, that action, all of it to the divine. And then, as Swami Swahananda said, don't give it another thought. You've learned what you can from it. Move on. And his words were, go forward. Set aside the past. Stop looking ahead. What you know already has already been said. So there's no need to rehearse it or repeat it. What happened that caused you to be embarrassed, or the embarrassment, move right on. Go forward. And we do it within the context of karma yoga, we do it by offering it and living sacramentally, offering everything as a sacrament, even the unpleasant and the embarrassing. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
So I think what I'm hearing is if we have lower thoughts like anger, lust, vengeance, we can offer those up to the Lord and they'll be attenuated. And also our karmas will also be attenuated as well.
Absolutely, dear. When we have those thoughts, they are inevitable. Everyone will have those thoughts. What do we do with them? They are from our past experiences.
That we have those thoughts almost as if they come to us against our will.
Well, Krishna even answers that question. Arjuna asks that question later on in the Gita. Why do we do these things even against our will?
Mhm.
And Krishna answers him, because it's the gunas doing it, not you doing it. But you're absolutely right, Brahmadas. You will have these inauspicious thoughts. And they come from our past experiences. When they get triggered, there they are. What do we do with them? We offer them as well. Everything without exception, all feelings, all thoughts, all perceptions, all memories, all reveries, all knots, K-N-O-T-S, all knots of the heart. Almost all of these things that you just mentioned are somehow involved with some knot, some long binding of the heart, anger, vengeance, all these things. Offer them all. Offer them all. And when we do, as you say, you use the word attenuated. It's a good word. It's a $5 word, but it's a good one. The things, it means they get lessened and, so to speak, stretched out. Mm-hmm. And so if we take that attitude that we're going to offer everything, including the ugly, to the divine, and then
Right? We think of the divine as good, so we think we should all be offering him good things. That's why it's kind of hard to offer him the
well,
not
this
so-
is the fundamental delusion working in us, that our ignorance, thinking that the divine is only the good. If we look out into the universe and we look out into the world and we say that not a leaf moves but by the will of God, and God alone is the doer, is everything good? Is there not suffering? Is there not inauspiciousness? Is there not misery?
Well, there's terrible things in this world.
Yes, exactly. Is this not the divine at work?
And
Do
clearly
we
God must be
understand?
aware of what's going on. Yeah, he's aware of it.
Do we understand? No, we do not understand. Our left mind is simply not capable of understanding. We can come to a different kind of understanding, that this is a lesser reality than the reality of our being. And it doesn't mean we become indifferent to the inauspiciousness, the suffering, the misery. No, as a matter of fact, what happens is you become even more compassionate, and you seek the ways that you can make a difference in those things that you can make a difference in and for. And so you become more compassionate toward humanity. And so you offer prayer for all those who suffer, and all those who are in misery and grieving. And you offer what you can in the way of material support to those organizations and individuals that are able to make a difference in any given situation of suffering. For example, the Atlanta Community Food Bank. The Atlanta Community Food Bank provides 4 meals for every $1 that you give them to those who are poor and disadvantaged, those who need food. And according to their statistics, 1 out of 4 children in Atlanta goes to bed hungry. 1 out of 4 children in Atlanta goes to bed hungry. So if you want to do something, that is materially useful to alleviate a kind of suffering, the hunger of going to bed hungry, then give some money to the Atlanta Community Food Bank. It's easy. Just go on their website, make a donation, send them a check. For every dollar you send them, they will provide 4 meals. That's their promise. You can go on their website and read about all this if you're at all curious. The fact that we become aware of the suffering and inauspiciousness that is taking place in universe and this world. And if we think it's only happening here, then we're just dreaming. Whatever happens here is just a reflection, Swami Vivekananda says, of the macrocosm. The whole universe is in a period of transformation. And that means destruction and reconstruction. And so any little thing that we can do, as Swami Vivekananda said, if you can bring a smile to one face on any given day, if you can bring a smile to a face that was sad, you've done a great thing. Just that. So I think we're going to leave it there for this evening.
Yes, Brother Shankara, I'll leave it right there, end of page 52.
All right. So Swam, when you get the book next week and are serving again as our reader, the bottom of page 52.
Yes.
Sure, Brother Shankara, I'll make a note of it. Thank you.
Any final thought or concern or question from anyone? All right, dears.
Actually, I have one that's a little not 100% related.
Go right ahead.
So when we're in the state where we've been reduced down to where all there is left is God, and we realize that we're the Atman, and is that the bhakti state?
It is the full realization state. It can be seen as because there will be this unmeasurable love of what one has discovered. One can say that is bhakti or devotion, but it encompasses all of the range of feelings. And there's no way to describe it at all. Swami Prabhavananda was asked, if I attain this state, Swami, that you're telling me to attain, won't I lose everything? And by this, the person meant their personality and their individuality. Won't I lose everything? And the Swami just laughed and said, no, my child, you don't lose anything. You gain everything. And so this is a very apropos question, Glenn, that you don't lose anything. You gain everything. And it's absolutely beyond, the Swami would say, it's beyond description what you achieve there. And this is savikalpa samadhi. This is the realization of your oneness with the divine being as a part of the divine being. And it's not nirvikalpa. Nirvikalpa we can't even talk about because there's no knower there. There's no one to talk about it. Even those who return from it can't talk about it. They can only talk about what they have become because of their having been in that state. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, read Swami Vivekananda's book, Inspired Talks. You see there him talking about what has become of him because of having been in the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But he doesn't talk about the samadhi itself. There's nothing to say. But savikalpa samadhi, we can say something. We can say that we have had the experience of being united with the divine presence, totally united with the divine presence, but seeing ourselves still as a part. It is as if a slice has been cut out of a pie, not removed yet from the pie, but there's just this tiny little bit of separation between the rest of the pie and the slice that has been cut out. We see ourselves as that slice, or as Christ said, we see then as through a glass darkly. We almost see it all, but not quite. But even that state is totally transformative. When we return from that savikalpa state, we no longer see the world in terms of secular and spiritual. It's all a part of the divine. That does not mean that we don't experience the world as we experienced it before. That is to say, good things happen, bad things happen, indifferent things happen. The good, the bad, and the ugly still happens. But we just see it as all a part of the divine, because it has been our experience that there is nothing else. Does that answer your question, Glenn?
That's part of it. So, I was thinking about that state, and that, it's the most intimate state that you can imagine. And then, I'm back here and, objective reality. But then I feel like there's the irreverent parts of me that I want to hold back and not turn over or hide.
Well, this is why I recommended to you when I spoke that you read the book Love Poems from God. That has been the experience of every saint whose testimony is offered there. And this feeling of unworthiness, as Sri Krishna says in the Gita, when you have turned your face entirely toward me, I, the divine presence, see no sinner. There is no unworthiness. I see no sinner. Holiness itself shall transform you. But until your face is entirely turned in that direction, which is meant by savikalpa samadhi, then we will have these feelings. The thing to do, Glenn, if you're going to follow the direction of karma yoga, is offer those feelings too. And this is where we see the testimony of the saints in Love Poems from God, that they ultimately accept God's invitation to dance with them, to dance with him or her. God says, I don't care about any of that. Come, let's dance. And then this, in the embrace of the divine dancer, everything is resolved. And there is this transcendence. Saint Teresa of Avila so beautifully expresses it in the poems that are in that Love Poems from God book. And then, the saint that ends the book, Tukaram, and, he's this Hindu saint, this completely wacko guy. He describes the same thing in a very different way. But it's the same thing. It's exactly the same experience, just from a different frame of reference. and our minds are what create this frame of reference. Thank you, Glenn. Anything else from anyone? All right. Oh, dearly beloved, oh, Hari, dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by the open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this your jungle world. Om Amen. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, 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 and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. O dearly beloved, make it so. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we know we are always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Hari Om Tat Sat. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears, unless you call me or come and see me, that's it until Saturday. Saturday, of course, we're going to study How to Know God, Swami Prabhavananda's commentary on, based on his translation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. We're well along in the book in chapter 2, up in the 40s of the shlokas. I forget exactly where we are, but our reader on Saturday, Jeff, will tell us. But we're well along in describing the yamas, the restraints, and the niyamas, the observances that replace what we restrain ourselves from when we practice Raja Yoga. So any final thought or concern or question from anyone? All right, dears. Unless you call or write me an email, or otherwise we encounter one another until Saturday. And as my Celtic forebears would have said, a great and wonderful night to you, if it please your wonderful self. All right. Good night, dears. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om.